And knowing that you can't take personally what people do say to you, good, bad, or indifferent, that's the kind of thing that I continue to.
She could have spoken at 30, but she chose to wait. 6 men who spent decades assuming her silence meant she had forgiven them. At 79, Goldie Hawn let the names out. And after 50 years of silence, she finally said exactly how she felt about all of them. Which one of them never even knew she had cut him off? And which one tried to destroy her career simply because she said no? Join us as we reveal the 6 actors Goldie Hawn hated. Walter Matthau. Walter had been a Hollywood star for nearly 20 years before Goldie arrived on the set of Cactus Flower in 1969. He had an Oscar, top billing on some of the most commercially successful films of the previous decade. He was the reason that particular project existed, and he made sure everyone on that production understood it, including her. Walter Matthau had won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for The Fortune Cookie just 3 years earlier, in 1966. He had also starred in The Odd Couple in 1968, which grossed over $40 million and made him one of the most bankable names in Hollywood. At that point in the industry, the old hierarchy had not collapsed with the studio system, and established male stars still controlled the terms of productions they were attached to. Who got camera time? Whose timing the director protected? Whose contributions were taken seriously in the room? Matthau had spent 20 years inside that system and understood precisely how to use it. She was 23, and it was her first film. 1 season of a television sitcom behind her, and no film credits. There was nothing on paper that placed her in his category, and he made that context felt, not loudly, not through formal complaints, but through the specific dismissiveness of an established actor who has already decided where someone belongs and sees no reason to reconsider. He did not argue with her contributions or critique them. He simply did not receive them. She went to work. The Los Angeles Times reviewed the finished film and placed her above both Walter Matthau and Ingrid Bergman, 2 of the most established performers of their generation. Time magazine, which had previously described her television work as the output of a dizzy presence who constantly blew her lines, reversed its position entirely and called her timing extraordinary. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences gave her the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. First film, 23 years old. Cactus Flower was the 10th highest-grossing film of 1969. Walter received nothing from the project she had elevated. He moved to his next film. No acknowledgement reached her through any recorded channel, and no word passed through a third party. Nothing. The Oscar did not move her out of the category he had placed her in. It moved him out of hers. She never worked with him again, never explained why publicly. The record was clear enough. Years later, someone asked her what it had felt like to win the Oscar for that film. She said it felt like proof delivered to a room where the verdict had already been written. She collected it. She did not send a copy to Walter. The next man didn't dismiss her on a set. He waited until she turned him down personally, then went to work dismantling her career from the inside. What did Warren actually do? Warren Beatty. Shampoo was released in February 1975. Warren had co-written it, produced it, and starred in it. Over $50 million domestically. One of the defining films of that year. He was not simply an actor at that point. He had relationships with studio heads, with financiers, and with the producers who determined which projects advanced and which were quietly shelved. Warren Beatty's reputation for pursuing women in the industry was not a rumor. It was open knowledge. He had been linked to Natalie Wood, Joan Collins, Leslie Caron, and Julie Christie, among dozens of others. What made his attention dangerous was the same thing that made him powerful. He did not separate his personal life from his professional infrastructure. He used the same relationships to greenlight films and to pursue women. When a woman he wanted worked in the same industry, the professional leverage and the personal leverage were identical. Goldie was not the first woman to discover this. She was one of the few who walked away without saying a word. After the film wrapped, Warren made his personal interest in her apparent. The invitations began, dinners and private gatherings at his Beverly Hills home. She said no, clearly and more than once. What followed was not immediate. It was methodical. Scripts that had been moving in her direction stopped moving. Directors who had been enthusiastic went quiet. A producer she trusted delivered a specific warning. A word was circulating about her among people with hiring authority. The word was difficult. The suggestion attached to it was that she was not serious material, that she was complicated, that investing in her carried risk. Her professional record was the opposite of that. She had not changed her behavior on set and had not acquired a reputation for problems. She kept the knowledge of what he was doing and why. She carried it. She continued working. Between 1975 and 1978, she appeared in The Duchess and the Dirtwater Fox and Foul Play, both commercial successes. She did not retreat, change her behavior, or go public. She simply kept putting films on the board. Each one made the word Warren harder to sustain. You cannot call someone a risk when the numbers keep arriving on schedule. The campaign eventually ran out of momentum. Her career did not collapse. She worked through it, absorbed it, and came out the other side without having said a word publicly about where the interference was coming from or why. Years later, at an industry awards event, he approached her. He moved with the ease of a man who had either genuinely forgotten what he had done or decided it was not worth remembering. He began a greeting. She gave him a brief smile and turned her back before he finished his sentence. 26 years after Shampoo, they appeared together again in Town and Country, a production so troubled and so catastrophic at the box office that it became one of the most discussed financial disasters in Hollywood that decade. $90 million budget, $6.7 million returned. The man who had spent the mid-1970s circulating a word about her professionalism had his own word written for him in the end, by the industry, in the numbers. Warren operated behind closed doors. The next man did it in front of witnesses. What did Chevy do? Chevy Chase. Foul Play opened in July 1978. $27 million domestically. Variety called it excellent. Gene Siskel gave it 3 out of 4 stars. 7 Golden Globe nominations followed. Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy for Goldie, Best Actor for Chevy, and Best Picture in the same category. For both of them, the industry called it a clean success. The set had been a different story entirely. Chevy Chase left Saturday Night Live after just 1 season, from 1975 to 1976, despite being its breakout star. He was the first cast member to leave, and he did it publicly, telling the press he had outgrown the show. The decision fractured his relationship with Lorne Michaels permanently and sparked a rivalry with Bill Murray that ended in a physical altercation backstage years later. By the time Foul Play began production in 1977, Chase was carrying the full weight of industry expectations from a network that had watched him walk away from the hottest television show. It was his first major starring film role. He treated the production accordingly. He rewrote jokes during shooting without consulting director Colin Higgins. He restructured exchanges between himself and Goldie without discussion or agreement. When those exchanges worked in her favor, when her timing landed and the moment clearly belonged to her, his displeasure arrived through remarks and friction. One evening, A disagreement about a specific scene escalated past the point of normal set tension. Chevy walked off and refused to return until changes were made to his satisfaction. Production stopped. The crew waited. Goldie sat on the exterior steps of the location, told someone nearby that he was simply not the same person off camera that the camera suggested he might be, and waited. The production eventually resumed. She finished the film. The nominations arrived. The studio moved immediately toward a sequel. Both stars had received individual recognition, and the Golden Globe attention had generated additional visibility. She asked nothing. She told her representation she was not interested, and that was the full extent of the conversation. She was nominated for a Golden Globe at the time she said that. She gave it up because none of it was worth returning to that set for a single day. The sequel was never made, not because the commercial logic was absent, because she was not, and without her, it was not the same project. Chevy cost her a Golden Globe campaign, and she didn't flinch. But The Next Man did it in a single room, in front of producers, mid-scene, and what he said while she was still standing there is the moment that defined everything that came after. What did Dustin say? Dustin Hoffman. In 1980, Private Benjamin grossed $69.8 million domestically. Goldie had produced it herself, an unusual move for an actress at that stage of her career. The Academy nominated her for Best Actress. The film cost $11 million to make. Those numbers, in that order, represented what she walked into the audition carrying. Dustin had won the Oscar the previous year for Kramer vs. Kramer. He was the most critically respected American film actor of his generation. The Graduate, Midnight Cowboy, Lenny, and All the President's Men. The producers assembling the drama believed that pairing these two people would produce something with genuine weight. Dustin Hoffman had collected his Best Actor Oscar for Kramer vs. Kramer at the 52nd Academy Awards in April 1980. His acceptance speech drew immediate attention. He thanked his ex-wives for giving him pain to use in his work, a comment widely noted as self-serving. The film he was being assembled for with Goldie was in development during the peak of his critical authority, the period between Kramer vs. Kramer and Tootsie, when no male actor in American cinema carried more weight with studios or critics. His word in an audition room carried the full force of someone who had recently been standing at that podium. The reading began. She worked through the scene with deliberate restraint and emotionally specific choices, nothing broad or telegraphed. Halfway through the scene, Dustin stopped. He turned to face the producers at the table and told them she was still performing like a sitcom actress. He framed it as a professional assessment. He delivered it while she was standing in the room. She finished the scene from the point of interruption. When the reading ended, she thanked the people at the table, gathered her things, and left before anyone could begin a follow-up conversation. She called her representation the next morning. She was withdrawing. Nothing further was offered to anyone in that room. The project went forward without her and found its actress. She went back to work. The industry continued to award Dustin Hoffman, Tootsie in 1982, Rain Man in 1988. Critics called him one of the greatest actors alive. The audition room in 1980 produced no public record. It produced nothing that followed her at all, only him. In 2017, multiple women came forward with accounts of his sexual harassment and inappropriate behavior spanning decades. The pattern Goldie had identified privately, in an audition room in the early 1980s, had a much longer history than one interrupted reading, longer and deeper than anyone in that room that day had known. The Next Man attacked something different. He went after the work she had spent a decade building that had nothing to do with Hollywood at all. What did Sean say? And where did he say it? Sean Penn. Mind Up was not a celebrity side project. Goldie founded it in 2003 under the Goldie Hawn Foundation, built in direct response to the trauma she observed in children in the weeks following September 11th. The curriculum was developed alongside neuroscientists at the University of British Columbia. Peer-reviewed, implemented in schools across the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Hong Kong. Published academic studies confirmed measurable improvements in student well-being, stress regulation, and academic performance across multiple years of data. By 2014, it had reached hundreds of thousands of children in formal classroom settings. By 2014, Sean Penn held 2 Academy Awards, Best Actor for Mystic River in 2004 and Best Actor for Milk in 2009. He had also built a visible public identity as a humanitarian through his relief work in Haiti, following the 2010 earthquake. That dual profile, serious actor and serious activist, made his behavior at that gala particularly pointed. He was not in that room as a bystander to serious work. He was there as someone who publicly identified with it. The dismissal was not the act of someone disengaged from humanitarian causes. It was the behavior of someone who had decided that only certain kinds of serious work counted. That year, she attended a charity gala in Malibu and was invited to speak. She took the stage. Sean was at a table near the front. As she began speaking, he made his disengagement visible in a way designed to be noticed. He said something to those at his table, audible beyond it, indicating that the room was receiving the kind of celebrity health lecture he found tedious. He performed his boredom. She completed her remarks. The room responded warmly. As she stepped back from the podium, he offered one final observation to his immediate audience, that she should confine herself to what she was known for. The word he used was giggling. She had founded a peer-reviewed program in 12 countries. The word he used for her life's work was giggling. She noted it, but said nothing. From that evening, she checked every guest list before confirming attendance. If his name appeared, she would not go. She restructured her calendar around his absence, permanently and without discussion. When someone close to her asked directly about him, she gave 3 words. He was not her energy. The last name is different because he went to his grave never knowing the door existed. How do you end up on a list you never knew about? Kirk Douglas. Kirk survived a stroke in January 1996 that temporarily took his speech, relearned to talk, wrote a memoir about the experience, and returned to public life. He had been a star since Champion in 1949 through Spartacus in 1960. By the late 1990s, he was not simply attending industry events. He was the event. Kirk Douglas had published his stroke memoir by 2002, but his recovery had been publicly documented since 1996. His son Michael had by then become one of the most powerful producers and actors in Hollywood, winning Best Picture for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Best Actor for Wall Street. By the late 1990s, the Douglas name operated across 2 generations simultaneously. Kirk as legacy and Michael as active power. Kirk's presence at any industry gathering carried the weight of both. He had not simply survived his stroke and returned. He had been canonized, and every room he walked into treated him accordingly, including that panel, including that moderator, and including every person at the table. Except one. The panel discussion Goldie attended alongside him brought together established figures to discuss film, craft, and the business. She was there as an Oscar winner with a 30-year career, producing credits, and 2 Best Actress nominations. Kirk greeted her with the ease of someone who had been working that particular room for 50 years. He kissed her hand. He told her she had not aged. The audience responded with the warmth they always gave him. When the discussion began, he interrupted her. The first interruption redirected a point she was developing by finishing her sentence in a different direction. The second corrected a position before she had completed it. The third turned a moment she was building into a platform for his own perspective, without acknowledging she had been speaking. None of it was aggressive or loud. The panel ran for just under an hour. Every time she built toward a point, the room watched him redirect it. The moderator attempted twice to return the floor to her. Both times, Kirk continued. He was not performing well. He was not aware enough of her presence to even register it as necessary. He was simply doing what that room had always allowed him to do, because no one in it had ever asked him to stop. The moderator noticed. Members of the audience noticed. One person involved in the event said afterward that Goldie's demeanor shifted visibly across the panel, from engaged and present to a careful composure that read like a decision. She told someone close to her afterward what it had actually felt like. She had walked into that room carrying 30 years of work and been engaged with as though she were still the young blonde woman at the start of her career, charming, decorative, and someone to be spoken warmly to rather than spoken at. She remained warm toward his son, Michael, whom she spoke about in consistently respectful terms across multiple interviews. Kirk, she simply stopped, including him. He died on February 5, 2020, at 103. Every other man on this list felt the door close. They knew something between them had shifted. Kirk felt none of it. He went to his grave believing things between them were fine. Was the silence power, or was it the price she paid? And would any of them have done it if she'd spoken sooner? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.